Rain drizzled softly against the window, each drop lingering before sliding down in blurred streaks. Kirat sat alone in her small London flat, the pale glow of her laptop screen casting shifting light across her face. For nearly a decade, her nights had followed the same pattern. Quiet hours spent talking to Bobby, the man she had never met in person, yet knew more intimately than anyone else. He claimed to live in a seaside town, busy with work but always finding time for her. His messages were gentle, his voice over the phone deep and calming, the kind that could smooth away any worry. But whenever Kirat suggested meeting, Bobby always had an excuse: a sick mother, sudden work trips, cancelled flights. That August London's air felt unusually heavy. One night, as the damp breeze from the Thames seeped in through the slightly open window, Bobby wrote to say he had dreamt of her standing under a bridge, wind lifting her hair, eyes filled with sadness. Kirat shivered. It was the exact dream she had woken from the night before. She couldn't recall ever telling him. Day by day, Bobby's presence began to seep into every corner of her life. He knew when she came home late, when she met someone for lunch. Once, he sent her a photo of a small cafe near her office captioned, "I think you'd like this place." But Kirat had never mentioned it to him, never posted about it online. She started noticing the faint sensation of being watched when she walked down the street. The shop windows reflected her figure, but somewhere in the distance, there always seemed to be another shape, indistinct, blurred, just far enough away to avoid recognition. One late night, Bobby suggested a video call. For the first time in nearly 10 years, he agreed to turn on his camera. The screen flickered to life, but instead of the face she had imagined all these years, there was only darkness, and behind that shadow, the faint outline of a room, cream-colored walls, a low bookshelf, a small window, a room she recognized with sudden icy clarity. It looked exactly like her own living room. Before she could speak, the call ended. A final message appeared on her screen. "I'm closer than you think." Outside, the rain began to fall harder, each drop striking in a slow, deliberate rhythm, as if someone was standing just beyond her door, quietly knocking. Kirat froze, her eyes fixed on the darkened screen. The hum of her laptop fan seemed louder now, filling the silence. She rose slowly, every creak of the floorboards beneath her feet sounding too sharp, too deliberate. The curtains were still drawn, but she felt the pull to look outside, a dread so strong it was almost physical. With trembling fingers, she peeled the fabric back just enough to see the street below. The rain glossed the pavement under the amber glow of the street lamps. Empty, no movement. Yet the sensation of being observed clung to her skin, prickling at the back of her neck. A phone buzzed. An email. No subject line, no text, just an attachment. Against every instinct, she opened it. A photograph filled the screen, herself, taken moments ago from behind as she sat at the laptop. The angle was impossible unless someone had been inside the flat. She dropped the phone, backing toward the kitchen, where the only exit besides the front door was the small balcony. The air felt heavier now, the walls seeming to close in. Somewhere faint but distinct came the soft click of a door latch. Kirat's mind scrambled. She grabbed her coat, her keys, but when she reached the front door, the chain was already fastened from the inside. She never used the chain. A whisper curled through the quiet, not from the hall, but from within the flat itself. A man's voice, low, almost amused. "It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?" Her breath caught. She spun toward the sound. In the shadowed corner near the bookshelf stood a figure tall, still his features swallowed in darkness. But she knew the timbre of that voice. It was Bobby. He stepped forward just enough for the light to catch his face, except it wasn't the face from the photos she'd seen for years. This was someone entirely different, older eyes unblinking and too fixed on hers. "You've let me in all along," he said softly, "and now I'm finally here." The lights flickered. The room dimmed as if the night outside had pressed closer against the walls. Kirat's thoughts raced for an escape, but his footsteps followed, slow and deliberate, matching the pounding of her heart. Beyond the door, the rain was relentless, drowning out everything except the quiet closing of space between them. Story 2. The corridors of the Boston Marriott were quiet that night, muffled under the hum of air conditioning and the faint, distant thrum of an elevator. Julissa adjusted the strap of her bag, her heels sinking slightly into the plush carpet as she followed the room numbers. She had been here before, not this exact hotel, but places like it, answering ads, meeting clients who had found her through Craigslist. Most encounters were uneventful. Tonight felt different, though she couldn't have said why. The door to room 1436 opened before she could knock. A young man stood there, tall, clean-cut, the kind of face that would blend seamlessly into a crowd. His smile was polite, almost shy. "Come in," he said softly. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cologne and laundry detergent. The bed was made perfectly, the desk cleared except for a small black duffel bag. Julissa set her purse down, her eyes scanning the room without thinking. Something about the way he closed the door slowly, with a final click, made her chest tighten. They exchanged a few words, the kind of small talk that never lingered. But his gaze didn't match his smile. It lingered too long, tracking her in a way that made her skin feel thinner, more exposed. When she reached into her purse, she noticed the shadow shift on the wall behind her. It wasn't the steady movement of someone pacing. It was a deliberate stillness, as if he had stopped breathing. Then came the sound, the soft rasp of fabric, the faint creak of floorboards under deliberate weight. She turned just as he stepped closer, and for the first time, his smile faltered. Something flashed in his hand, a length of plastic cord taut between his fingers. Julissa's heart surged into her throat. The walls seemed to press inward, the patterned carpet spinning beneath her as adrenaline surged. She backed toward the desk, but the corner trapped her. His voice, calm and level, carried an edge colder than the air in the room. "It'll be quick," he murmured. In that moment, the muted hum of the hotel felt impossibly far away. No one would hear the struggle over the steady rhythm of her own panicked breathing. The cord tightened in his grip, his steps closing the last of the distance, and the dull brass of the door's security latch gleamed in the lamplight, useless now locked from the inside. The hallway outside remained silent, unaware of the violence about to unfold just beyond the thin veneer of its beige walls. The first impact knocked the breath from her chest, sending her crashing into the edge of the desk. The lamp toppled, its shade rolling across the floor, casting frantic shadows that seemed to flicker with each heartbeat. She tried to scream, but his forearm pressed hard against her throat, the cord looping, tightening. Her nails raked at his wrist, at his sleeve, searching for skin. Something to tear, something to make him let go. He didn't speak now. His face had shifted into a grim, determined mask, eyes unblinking. The clean-cut strangers at the door was gone, replaced by a predator who had rehearsed this moment in silence. Julissa's heel struck the leg of the desk, sending a sharp crack into the stillness. Somewhere deep in the hallway, a door latch clicked. For a second, his grip loosened, his head turning toward the sound. She twisted, gasping a breath sharp enough to burn her lungs, and bolted toward the door. The chain was still fastened. Her fingers fumbled at the metal, shaking too violently to slip it free. He was behind her again, pulling her backward with a force that lifted her feet from the floor. The carpet muffled the fall, but the weight of him was crushing the cord, sliding once more around her neck. Her vision narrowed, edges, blurring colors fading into a dim tunnel. The muffled hum of the air conditioning returned louder now, almost like a roar. She thought of the street outside, of the sound of traffic, of cool air on her skin. It felt a lifetime away. The last thing she saw was the room's door, still half in view, the hallway's dim light seeping under the threshold so close she could almost reach it. When the silence settled, the only sound was his steady breathing. He stood, adjusting his collar, and calmly coiled the cord back into the duffel bag. His movements were meticulous, almost clinical, as if erasing her presence from the room. He checked his reflection in the mirror, smoothed the front of his shirt, and picked up the black bag. The latch slid free with a soft metallic sigh. Stepping into the hallway, he closed the door behind him with the same slow finality as before. The corridor was empty, carpeted footsteps carrying him toward the elevator. Somewhere above, the muted chime of a lift arriving echoed faintly, swallowed quickly by the hotel's insulated stillness. Leaving room 1436, silent, sealed, and waiting to be found. Story 3. The new apartment was supposed to be a fresh start. Emma had chosen it for its quiet street, the way the late afternoon sun slid across the pale walls, and the sense of safety that came from living on the third floor. After months of tense days and sleepless nights, she finally felt the weight of her ex Daniel fading from her life. Or so she thought. It began subtly, a bouquet of lilies left outside her door. No note attached. She told herself it was a mistake meant for another tenant. Then came the emails from addresses she didn't recognize, each one short and vague. Miss you. I'm thinking about you. We need to talk. She deleted them without replying. One evening, returning from the grocery store, she noticed her front door was slightly ajar. The lock hadn't been forced. The chain still dangled against the frame. Inside, nothing was missing. Nothing out of place except for the faint scent of Daniel's cologne lingering in the air. She called her sister, tried to laugh it off, told her she was just being paranoid. But that night, while reading in bed, Emma heard the sound of a key turning in the front door. The chain caught metal, clinking in the stillness. Footsteps shifted outside, then silence. The next morning, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a single photograph, her asleep, the angle taken from the side of her bed. Her hands trembled as she shoved it back into the envelope. She checked every window, every lock, but the unease clung to her like damp air. A week later, she woke to the faint creak of the hallway floorboards. The apartment was dark, shadows pooling in the corners. Her phone's screen lit up an unread text: "We were meant to be together." Stop fighting it. The number was blocked, but she knew. She rose barefoot, stepping quietly into the living room. The curtains swayed, though the windows were shut. On the coffee table sat another envelope, as if it had been waiting for her. Inside a note, written in neat, deliberate handwriting, "I still have the key. I always will." Her heart pounded against her ribs. The soft hum of the refrigerator seemed to fill the entire space, and somewhere beyond the dim kitchen doorway, she thought she heard the faint exhale of someone who had been holding their breath for a very long time. Emma stood frozen, the note trembling in her hand. The air felt heavier now, pressing against her chest. She reached for the nearest light switch, but when the bulb flickered to life, the kitchen beyond was empty. Only the slow sway of the curtains broke the stillness, their movements too measured to be the work of a stray draft. Her phone buzzed again. Another message turned around. The instinct to run tightened in her muscles. But curiosity or fear anchored her. She turned slowly, every nerve screaming. The hallway stretched out before her, dim and narrow, the shadows shifting just enough to hint at movement. A shape emerged, tall and familiar, standing just beyond the reach of the light. His voice was calm, almost soothing, but carried a weight that made her blood run cold. "You locked the door, Emma. But you forgot about the balcony." She glanced toward the sliding glass doors in the living room. The latch was still down, but the curtains had swayed from the inside. He stepped forward, and the dim glow caught his face, older, sharper, but unmistakably Daniel. There was no wildness in his eyes, only a terrible steadiness, as if he had been rehearsing this moment for months. Emma backed away, her mind racing for an escape. The front door was too far. He was between her and the balcony. The bathroom, perhaps, but as she shifted her weight, the floor creaked, and his smile widened. "You've made this harder than it had to be," he murmured, reaching into his jacket. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Without thinking, she grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy ceramic mug from the counter, and hurled it toward him. It shattered against the wall, giving her just enough time to bolt toward the front door. Her fingers fumbled at the chain, the metal clinking far too loud. Daniel's footsteps closed in. She ripped the chain free and yanked the door open, only to be met by the cold emptiness of the hallway. She ran, not daring to look back, the sound of his calm, measured steps following her like an echo. Somewhere behind her, her apartment door clicked shut. That same slow, deliberate sound she remembered from all those months ago when she still thought she was safe. And in the silence that followed, she knew the key he claimed to have. He hadn't lied. The first impact knocked the breath from her chest, sending her crashing into the edge of the desk. The lamp toppled, its shade rolling across the floor, casting frantic shadows that seemed to flicker with each heartbeat. She tried to scream, but his forearm pressed hard against her throat, the cord looping, tightening. Her nails raked at his wrist, at his sleeve, searching for skin. Something to tear, something to make him let go. He didn't speak now. His face had shifted into a grim, determined mask, eyes unblinking. The clean-cut strangers at the door was gone, replaced by a predator who had rehearsed this moment in silence. Julissa's heel struck the leg of the desk, sending a sharp crack into the stillness. Somewhere deep in the hallway, a door latch clicked. For a second, his grip loosened, his head turning toward the sound. She twisted, gasping a breath sharp enough to burn her lungs, and bolted toward the door. The chain was still fastened. Her fingers fumbled at the metal, shaking too violently to slip it free. He was behind her again, pulling her backward with a force that lifted her feet from the floor. The carpet muffled the fall, but the weight of him was crushing the cord, sliding once more around her neck. Her vision narrowed edges, blurring colors, fading into a dim tunnel. The muffled hum of the air conditioning returned louder now, almost like a roar. She thought of the street outside, of the sound of traffic, of cool air on her skin. It felt a lifetime away. The last thing she saw was the room's door, still half in view, the hallway's dim light seeping under the threshold so close she could almost reach it. When the silence settled, the only sound was his steady breathing. He stood adjusting his collar and calmly coiled the cord back into the duffel bag. His movements were meticulous, almost clinical, as if erasing her presence from the room. He checked his reflection in the mirror, smoothed the front of his shirt, and picked up the black bag. The latch slid free with a soft metallic sigh. Stepping into the hallway, he closed the door behind him with the same slow finality as before. The corridor was empty, carpeted footsteps carrying him toward the elevator. Somewhere above, the muted chime of a lift arriving echoed faintly, swallowed quickly by the hotel's insulated stillness. Leaving room 1436, silent, sealed, and waiting to be found. Story 3. The new apartment was supposed to be a fresh start. Emma had chosen it for its quiet street, the way the late afternoon sun slid across the pale walls, and the sense of safety that came from living on the third floor. After months of tense days and sleepless nights, she finally felt the weight of her ex Daniel fading from her life. Or so she thought. It began subtly, a bouquet of lilies left outside her door. No note attached. She told herself it was a mistake meant for another tenant. Then came the emails from addresses she didn't recognize, each one short and vague. Miss you. I'm thinking about you. We need to talk. She deleted them without replying. One evening, returning from the grocery store, she noticed her front door was slightly ajar. The lock hadn't been forced. The chain still dangled against the frame. Inside, nothing was missing. Nothing out of place except for the faint scent of Daniel's cologne lingering in the air. She called her sister, tried to laugh it off, told her she was just being paranoid. But that night, while reading in bed, Emma heard the sound of a key turning in the front door. The chain caught metal, clinking in the stillness. Footsteps shifted outside, then silence. The next morning, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a single photograph, her asleep, the angle taken from the side of her bed. Her hands trembled as she shoved it back into the envelope. She checked every window, every lock, but the unease clung to her like damp air. A week later, she woke to the faint creak of the hallway floorboards. The apartment was dark, shadows pooling in the corners. Her phone's screen lit up an unread text: "We were meant to be together." Stop fighting it. The number was blocked, but she knew. She rose barefoot, stepping quietly into the living room. The curtains swayed. Two the windows were shut. On the coffee table sat another envelope, as if it had been waiting for her. Inside, a note, written in neat, deliberate handwriting: "I still have the key. I always will." Her heart pounded against her ribs. The soft hum of the refrigerator seemed to fill the entire space, and somewhere beyond the dim kitchen doorway, she thought she heard the faint exhale of someone who had been holding their breath for a very long time. Emma stood frozen, the note trembling in her hand. The air felt heavier now, pressing against her chest. She reached for the nearest light switch, but when the bulb flickered to life, the kitchen beyond was empty. Only the slow sway of the curtains broke the stillness, their movements too measured to be the work of a stray draft. Her phone buzzed again. Another message turned around. The instinct to run tightened in her muscles. But curiosity or fear anchored her. She turned slowly, every nerve screaming. The hallway stretched out before her. Dim and narrow, the shadows shifting just enough to hint at movement. A shape emerged, tall and familiar, standing just beyond the reach of the light. His voice was calm, almost soothing, but carried a weight that made her blood run cold. "You locked the door, Emma. But you forgot about the balcony." She glanced toward the sliding glass doors in the living room. The latch was still down, but the curtains had swayed from the inside. He stepped forward, and the dim glow caught his face, older, sharper, but unmistakably Daniel. There was no wildness in his eyes, only a terrible steadiness, as if he had been rehearsing this moment for months. Emma backed away, her mind racing for an escape. The front door was too far. He was between her and the balcony. The bathroom, perhaps, but as she shifted her weight, the floor creaked and his smile widened. "You've made this harder than it had to be," he murmured, reaching into his jacket. Her breath came in shallow bursts. Without thinking, she grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy ceramic mug from the counter, and hurled it toward him. It shattered against the wall, giving her just enough time to bolt toward the front door. Her fingers fumbled at the chain, the metal clinking far too loud. Daniel's footsteps closed in. She ripped the chain free and yanked the door open, only to be met by the cold emptiness of the hallway. She ran, not daring to look back, the sound of his calm, measured steps following her like an echo. Somewhere behind her, her apartment door clicked shut. That same slow, deliberate sound she remembered from all those months ago when she still thought she was safe. And in the silence that followed, she knew the key he claimed to have. He hadn't lied.